Welcome to Doncast Deep Dive. We have a really fascinating session ahead of us today. But before we get lost in the sauce, and believe me, with today's topic, getting lost is kind of the whole point. I should probably set the stage.
Probably a good idea.
So what we do here is explore the stories, the themes, and the creative journeys behind compilations from a Dawn. This is a series of, well, musical narratives from the author Phondeaux.
Yeah, and each deep dive, we try to uncover the inspiration, the evolution, and all the personal growth that's woven into these compilations he puts together. It's a really unique format, almost like an audio memoir.
An audio memoir, I like that. And just so everyone's on the same page, today we are diving into episode 10.
Episode 10, and it's a big one.
It really is. The title for this one is A Raw, Sinful Deep Dive. We're unpacking a compilation called Raw, Sinful Moments. Now, when you hear the word sin, you usually expect something heavy, right? Something about regret or morality. But reading through Phondeaux's notes on this, it feels different. It feels electric.
Visceral is the word that comes to my mind. It's just so visceral. But before we get into the, the sin of it all, I think we need to understand the person behind it, Phondeaux.
Right.
I mean, based on his about the author section, he's not just, dragging and dropping songs into a playlist. He sees himself as this creative force, blending music, storytelling, cultural expression.
He says his series captures moments, ambitions, and cultural rhythms.
Exactly. It's all about introspection and the art of curation. And I think that phrase, the art of curation, is doing so much work here. It's not just about what songs sound good together. It's about building an emotional narrative.
He's building a house out of other people's bricks.
I love that. And this particular house, it feels more like a dimly lit lounge in a city that never sleeps.
Totally. So let's get into the anatomy of this sinful moment. Don explicitly calls this compilation a love letter, but it's not the kind with, pressed flowers and fancy handwriting.
Not even close.
He calls it a love letter to a time where pleasure roared louder than reason.
Just stop on that for a second. Pleasure roared louder than reason. I mean, that's the fundamental conflict of being human, isn't it? We spend our whole lives trying to be reasonable, to make the smart choice.
Yeah.
And Don's taking us to a moment where he just decided to let the roar win.
He paints this picture of a time when the heart sprinted faster than the mind could catch it. He calls it a melody wrapped in mischief. I think we've all been there, right? That feeling where, logically you should probably just go home.
Or not send that text.
Exactly. But the adrenaline is just driving the car.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that he knew the risks. He says caution was just a whisper in the wind.
So he heard it, he heard the whisper, he just chose to, turn up the music instead.
And speaking of turning up the volume, we have to talk about the muse, the person who inspired all this. The way he describes her, it's just so intense, it almost feels dangerous.
Oh, it's very film noir.
There's this one metaphor that it floored me. He writes, "If looks could kill, hers would have sent me straight to the hospital."
Which is such a classic trope, the femme fatale.
But then he flips it. He says he'd hoped to find her in that hospital, in scrubs, stitching up the very heart she just stole.
See, that's so complex. The person who causes the injury is also the only one who can heal it. It creates this closed loop of dependency.
It sounds like something a therapist would have a field day with.
Chuckles softly. Oh, for sure. But Don's not really looking for a diagnosis here. He actually says some recoveries aren't found in medicine. They're found in the right kind of madness.
The right kind of badness.
Oh.
That is going to stick with me. It reframes the whole thing not as a mistake, but as a kind of necessary insanity.
He needed something chaotic to match his own internal state. He calls her the sin I couldn't repent but had to confess.
Which brings us to the whole atmosphere. It's not just her, it's a feeling. A feeling that he says is unruly and undeniable. I love this line, where love wore a leather jacket and laughed in the face of what if.
That personification is just brilliant. Love wearing a leather jacket. It tells you everything. This isn't cozy fireplace love. This is rebellion. It's danger.
And the backdrop he paints, stolen nights, half-lit city skies, waves crashing. It feels like a movie set.
A world apart from, paying bills and going to work. He says, where science couldn't explain the chemistry, art stepped in. Which is why this whole thing exists as a playlist.
Because music can capture what he says, poetry dared not speak aloud.
Exactly. Words can be too precise sometimes. Music lets you just feel the ambiguity.
So you have this incredibly intense leather jacket romance. And usually these stories end in a total disaster, a huge burnout.
Yeah.
But reading Don's notes, That's not what happened here, is it?
No, and this is where the story takes a really surprising and honestly a very mature turn. We get into what he calls the philosophy of the good ending.
He actually calls the ending sweet.
He mentions a talk he had with some friends, Moose and Owl, about how you address a romance that ends on good terms, without any regret.
That's a tough one. Usually we just assume a breakup means something went wrong, that it was a failure.
Right, that's our cultural script. But Don introduces this idea he calls a temporary forever.
Temporary forever. Okay, I need you to unpack that. It sounds like a total contradiction.
It's the idea that two people can come together for a time, respect what it was, and then just leave it at that. It doesn't have to last until you die to have been meaningful.
So it's about the quality of the moment, not the duration of the relationship.
Precisely. And he says, very clearly, he doesn't need more love from her as long as there is no love lost from her.
That distinction is so important. No hostility, just an acknowledgement that we did that, it was amazing, and now it's a memory.
He calls it a triumph, not a trial, which is a really healthy way to look at a quote-unquote sinful past.
But here's the thing I'm stuck on. Don admits he listens to this playlist a lot, and if I hear someone's got their ex playlist on repeat, my first thought is, buddy, you are stuck. You need to move on.
And he knows that. He anticipates that exact criticism. But he argues that the music captures the moment live.
What does he mean by live?
He means he made the playlist while he was living through it. So the music isn't a memory of a feeling, it's a preservation of the feeling itself.
It's like a time capsule. Or it's like preserving a bug in amber.
Or a confession booth. He says by turning it into art, the sin gets confessed and the feeling is immortalized. He can visit the museum of that relationship without ever having to move back in.
I love that. Okay, so we get the philosophy, we get the backstory. Now we really need to get into the soundtrack itself. Because Don gave some really specific track commentary. It's like a director's cut.
Yeah, the sequencing here is everything. It tells the story.
It starts with a track called The Deal by KLY.
Which is just perfect. Don calls it the intro. Every arrangement, especially a sinful one, needs terms. You have to agree on the rules.
He basically says, if you can't meet the terms, this is your exit. It's like the warning sign before the roller coaster. He describes the production as having a dreamlike thrill.
So it's seductive, but it's conditional. So you accept the deal. What's next? You surrender. The second track is Paralyzed by Jess ETA.
And this is about the effect of that thrill. He talks about a commitment to the taboo twists and turns.
And the influence of her charm that moves you to paralysis. You're just stuck in the headlights. But what's interesting is he calls the production ironically groovy.
Ironically groovy. I love that. It's like your mind is paralyzed, but your body still wants to dance.
Then you get the logistics.
Yeah.
Because even secret lovers have to check their calendars. The next track is Perfect Timing by Patty Monroe.
Huh, right. Even sin needs good scheduling.
And Don highlights that. You have to be willing to clear the schedules to make room for the moment.
And he compares Patty Monroe to a siren I'd wreck my ship for. So clearing your schedule isn't just about finding time. It's about being willing to wreck your entire routine for this person.
Exactly. You're blowing up your normal life for that little window of time. So the ship is wrecked, the schedules are cleared, now you enter the trance. The next song is Bad Thing by Ricky Lace.
He calls this one a special request to keep things all good. That's interesting phrasing. It's like, I know this is a bad thing, but let's just keep it feeling good for now.
And then comes the relapse. Anyone who's been in a situation like this knows the relapse.
Running Back by KLY, featuring Reefy Things.
And he says this one got him right away. It's about that charm that just keeps you coming back. But he gives a specific shout out to the guest verse by Reefy Sings. He says it birthed this fantasy of a devoted siren that pulls you to paradise's shore.
There's that siren again.
Yeah.
First, you wreck your ship for her. Now she's pulling you to shore. It's a cycle.
It really is. It shows he's not steering the ship anymore. He's just drifting.
And finally, he wraps up the analysis with a track called Lights by ALO.
This one's all about the visual, the chemistry, the desire. He says this line, sometimes you need to see it all, even though her silhouette is stunning on its own.
It's a snapshot. A fleeting moment illuminated in the dark. So you go from the deal to paralysis to logistics to the trance, the relapse, and finally just the visual. It really is a whole story.
You can feel the arc just from the song titles.
So when we zoom out, what's the big takeaway here? What does Don want us to walk away with?
I think he says it pretty clearly. Raw, Sinful Moments is about honoring passion and the thrill of temptation. But even more, it's about the art that's left behind after the moment is gone.
So it's celebration.
Yes, a celebration of connections that end well. He calls it a soundtrack for those who know that some sins are worth the story.
Some sins are worth the story. That is such a powerful idea. It reframes sin not as this, moral stain, but as maybe a necessary detour for a life well lived.
It totally reframes regret. If you get a good story out of it, if you get art out of it, was it really a mistake? The whole playlist is his confessional.
Right. He says, let this playlist be your midnight confession. And his call to action is play it loud, live it fully, confess without regret.
He even has a prompt for the listener. He asks, and for you listening at home, you should really think about this. What's the song that reminds you of a thrill you'll never regret?
It forces you to look back at your own raw, sinful moments, not with shame, but with the kind of appreciation.
Exactly. Those memories, those stitches he talked about, they're part of who you are now. And if you can respect that temporary forever, you can keep the memory without all the baggage.
You can keep to sin without the penance. That feels like a really good place to land.
It is. It's a reminder of the value in those midnight confessions. Finding peace after pleasure is its own kind of art form.
Well said. This has been an incredible journey through some pretty intense emotions, all curated by Don Phondeaux.
It really has.
Thank you for joining this Doncast deep dive into compilations from a Don. We've reached the end of this episode, but the journey doesn't stop here. If this moved you in any way, like the video so the sound can travel further, and subscribe for more Doncast deep dives and stories from the Don's Domain. When you're ready to go deeper, visit the Don's Domain at donphondeaux.com for more playlists, reflections, and written journeys. And if you're stepping outside, don't forget to let your style smile for you with Estilo Phondeaux. Enjoy loudly. Stay sound.